Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me live today. I'm really glad that you are here this Friday afternoon. Um, me, my name is I am the creator and head coach of a college admissions coaching program called CFF College Fully Funded. And in this program, we work with serious prospective college applicants who are ready to secure admission with full funding and avoid debt. If you are just coming across my corner of YouTube, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe so that others might be able to find this information if it's useful to them. Okay, this is my weekly live at 4 p.m. Eastern on Fridays. That's usually the time. I will say that next week there will be a little bit of a program change. So instead of Friday at 4 p.m., it will be Wednesday at 4 p.m. Because I have a medical appointment. Other than that, please feel free to come with your questions. You can put your questions in the comments live. If you're catching this on the replay because you can't make the live, please feel free to put in your questions as well. I will address the questions um, at a later time, either live or I will um, I will address the questions in the comments, or I can address them in a future live. Okay, so today's topic is the biggest scholarship myth families believe. All right. So one of the biggest mistakes that families make when it comes to funding for college and scholarships is what I call the $500 scholarship trap. And what I mean by this is that many students and families, um, partly because they do not focus on funding at the onset, they're focused on getting into a school. And then after they've secured admission, then they're scrambling to find funding. Partly because of that or that approach, um, we see so many students who spend an inordinate amount of time and energy focused on outside scholarships that are small dollar scholarships. Okay. So think around $500. And that's why I call it the $500 scholarship trap. Right. Now, if you think about what the average cost of a college education is, total cost of attendance. Okay. So the average, or if we think about a range, it ranges from around $25,000 on average to $100,000 plus, right? So starting from like the flagship public universities to prestigious private universities. Okay. Now, you have to think to yourself and say, how many $500 scholarships is a student going to cobble together to cover that cost? Right? That would be rather difficult. Okay. Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that any of these outside scholarships are necessarily bad or that even $500 scholarships are necessarily bad, right? There's some nuance here and they can be useful, but you have to think about what they're useful for. Okay. They're useful as extra, as closing a funding gap. After you have a financial aid offer, you have like a couple $1,000 gap to close. That's what those small dollar outside scholarships are good for, right? But they cannot be the main source of funding. And so my rule of thumb when it comes to these outside scholarships is to focus on the higher dollar ones. They're the very big names, but there are also some others that are not very big, that are in the thousands of dollars. So $1,000, a couple $1,000, right? And if you're going to focus on lower dollar, like the $500 outside scholarships, make sure that they're the ones that require minimal effort or that you can reuse material that you've already created. So for example, if you've created an essay for $1,000, $2,000 outside scholarship, can you apply to several smaller dollar scholarships that you can use the same material for? In which case it's just click and submit or cut and paste, and then the effort is not that much. In that case, those outside scholarships, small dollar outside scholarships can be useful, but again, they're not the main, they cannot be the main source of funding. So given everything that I've just said, what should be, or what then is the real source of funding to focus most of your efforts on? And if you've been listening to me or seen anything I've written, then you know that, of course, you guessed it, it's the college itself, right? You have to concentrate your efforts, your maximum efforts, the colleges to which you apply that will provide funding, right? And if you followed my previous lives, you might have heard me talk about um, institutional aid, right? So different colleges have different financial aid budgets separate from the funding, federal financial aid or state financial aid, right? So particularly the private ones, they have um, uh, various reasons for which they award their own institutional aid or institutional scholarships. Some of them are need-based, right? Need-based scholarships or need-based financial aid. Others are merit, but they have their criteria, they have their reasons, and they have their budgets students that they deem eligible. All right, so that is the biggest part of aid that a student can access and that a student will be able to get. So it is now left to each applicant to figure out which schools will provide institutional aid, need-based or merit, that will fit someone with their own application profile. So if I'm the applicant, like what schools out there are looking for someone with my application profile and will fund me, right? That should be the question that each applicant should be asking. So once the student figures that out and they make that list, then those are the schools to which the student will apply in order to maximize the amount of funding that they will receive. And in that case, they will be less reliant on the $500 scholarships. And even if they have to access those, it will be to fill in a couple $1,000s here or there in the funding gap, as opposed to the main source of funding. Okay, so having said that, it is now clear how applicants and families should focus their energies when it comes to preparing to apply. So that college list becomes so crucial. You might have heard me say this before, right? The college list is crucial to the process. It is actually the foundation to successfully get to college with full funding and avoiding debt. The choice of college matters, right? And so if a student applies to the right mix of colleges that consist of, a mix of dream-rich schools, um, a mix of dream-rich schools, or and likely schools that they're likely to get in, or even the so-called safe schools, right? When the student has the right mix of these colleges, all of which have met the criterion that they will be able to fund that student, that they have a financial aid budget, that they have institutional aid, whether it's need-based or not, then that student is really setting themselves up for success, right? And so the college list is so important. So again, for those who are not familiar with the terms, dream school or rich school is the most difficult on a student's list to get into, right? Not just that they have the highest, the lowest acceptance rates, but for that particular student's profile, that is the most difficult that they think that they would get into, right? And so a rich school or a dream school for one student might not be the same for another student, right? And then the likely schools are the ones with the higher probability that they will be able to get admitted to, again, given the student's individual profile. And then the safe schools are the ones that you're pretty sure that you would get into. Okay, so if funding for college is of utmost concern for you and your family, and you're seeking college admissions coaching or guidance, this is one way to evaluate the services or programs that you are considering, right? So the question to ask is, do they prioritize building the college list so that each student ends up applying to only schools that will fully fund them, and at the end of the admission cycle, the student is considering only good options, right? Is funding foundational to building the college list? Okay, and so that's one criterion to use to evaluate when you're looking at um, a college admissions coaching program or college guidance service. And so that's what we do in CFF College Fully Funded, right? During the intensive 12-week portion of our program, the first big assignment that students have to complete is building their college list, right? And on that list, and every student is different, they get all the instruction, the guidance, the resources to help them build their search, all of that, right? But on that list that they end up with, which they get feedback and guidance on, it's an assignment that they have to submit. Every school, every college on that list must be one that can fund them fully so that they don't have to take on debt, right? And so that's the approach that we take. So if this resonates with you and you would like to work with me to help your kid, your student, or you secure college admissions with full funding and avoid college debt, please feel free to complete a very short application to explore working together. So I have put a link in the description, and I will also pin a link to the comments as well. And so there's a brief application page. Feel free to take a look at that. And then we can go from there. So I am going to check to see. Okay. All right. So again, if you're finding this on the replay, please feel free to put your questions in the comments, and I'll come back to answer them, or I will address them in a future live. I want to reiterate that next week's live is going to be on Wednesday, September 2nd at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, instead of Friday, September 4th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Please feel free to come with your questions, and I will see you then. Thank you. Have a good weekend.